Suffering is a language the soul speaks when the world has become too loud. It is not merely the breaking of the body, the twisting of circumstances, or the quiet ache of loss. It is, first and foremost, a signal, a gentle, insistent whisper that something within us is calling for attention. For much of our lives, we are taught to avoid suffering. We are instructed to flee from discomfort, to mask pain with distractions, to soothe it with certainty, and to replace emptiness with busyness. Yet, in this very avoidance, we miss the message. Pain is not the enemy. It is a teacher. Consider the life of the one who has never known true adversity. Their days may be filled with light, with ease, with the comfort of the expected. Yet beneath this comfort lies a quiet void, an inner stillness that is not peace, but a subtle resignation. Without struggle, we may know calm, but we do not know ourselves. Suffering, in its many forms, is the mirror of the soul. When life collapses around us through heartbreak, failure, illness, or the slow erosion of dreams, it is not a punishment nor a flaw. It is a reflection. It shows us the parts of ourselves we have ignored, the truths we have denied, and the paths we have abandoned. Pain reveals the contours of our inner landscape. It exposes what we have built for others and asks gently, yet persistently, what we have built for ourselves. It whispers, "You are here, but are you living?" The first step in understanding suffering is to stop resisting it. Resistance, though natural, is a form of avoidance. It stiffens the body, clouds the mind, and hardens the heart. The more we fight, the more elusive understanding becomes. And so the path begins with stillness, with the courage to sit with the ache, to observe it without judgment, and to ask the quiet question, what am I being asked to see? It is in this space of observation that the true lesson begins to emerge. Suffering is never random. Every pain, no matter how small or overwhelming, carries with it a spark of insight. A recurrent disappointment, a persistent fear, a grief that refuses to soften, all of these are signposts. They point not to defeat, but to a deeper truth, waiting to be acknowledged. Growth through suffering is not immediate. It does not arrive with sudden clarity or instant resolution. It is subtle, patient, and often imperceptible. Like water shaping stone, it carves the soul slowly, exposing hidden channels of understanding. And in these channels, life begins to move differently. Priorities shift, desires realign. What once seemed urgent now dissolves in perspective, and what was ignored now insists upon attention. In this way, suffering is transformative, not because it changes the world, but because it changes the self. The outer circumstances may remain unchanged, the loss may remain, the hardship may continue, yet the individual, having listened deeply, perceives a new way to inhabit existence. A small flame of meaning ignites in the heart, and with it, the courage to act differently, to live differently, and to care differently. To understand this, we need only look to the wisdom of those who have walked similar paths. Philosophers, poets, mystics, all have recognized the intimate relationship between pain and insight. Nietzsche, in his quiet and precise observation, wrote that one must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. Viktor Frankl, having endured the depths of human cruelty, understood that meaning is found not in comfort, but in choosing one's response to suffering. Suffering is not punishment, it is invitation, an invitation to encounter the self fully, to witness the depths of one's own being, and to embrace the vastness of life in all its contradictions. It is a call to honesty, to look at one's fear, despair, and limitations with the clarity of someone willing to see the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. Yet, even as suffering invites growth, it often appears as a shadow, silent, subtle, sometimes suffocating. Many endure it without understanding, mistaking its persistence for failure or weakness. Others distract themselves endlessly, filling life with noise as though busyness could drown the voice of the soul. But the lesson waits patiently. It does not hurry, nor does it demand immediate comprehension. It unfolds only for those willing to attend. This is where reflection becomes essential. To engage with suffering thoughtfully is not to indulge in melancholy, but to cultivate awareness. Every pang of loss, every ache of disappointment, every moment of despair carries a question. What is this trying to teach me? What have I overlooked in my life? Where have I strayed from my own truth? The answers are rarely straightforward. They do not arrive as instructions or promises. They emerge in fragments, in quiet realizations, fleeting insights, subtle shifts in perception, a dream that lingers beyond waking, a thought that refuses to fade, a sudden understanding in conversation, in solitude, or in nature. These are the breadcrumbs leading back to the self. Pain teaches us humility. It reminds us that life cannot be fully controlled, that certainty is often an illusion, and that we are part of a world far greater than our comprehension. In this humility, however, there is also freedom. To acknowledge that we cannot dictate every outcome is to open space for creativity, for choice, for adaptation. Suffering, when embraced, becomes a teacher of resilience. Resilience, however, is not about mere endurance. It is not the ability to persist without reflection or insight. True resilience is the capacity to absorb the lessons of suffering, to integrate them, and to allow them to shape action, understanding, and purpose. It is the alchemy of turning pain into clarity, despair into wisdom, and adversity into opportunity. We often fear suffering because it threatens the ego. The ego clings to identity, comfort, and control. Pain dissolves these attachments, revealing the underlying reality of our existence: impermanence, vulnerability, and interconnectedness. But it is precisely in this dissolution that transformation is possible. The ego must soften, must release its grip, to allow the self, the deeper, enduring self, to emerge. In practical terms, growth through suffering requires engagement. It requires listening to the messages inherent in pain rather than fleeing from them. It requires questioning. What have I been avoiding? What do I fear in facing myself? What is being asked of me now? By giving these questions attention, we begin to discern patterns, motives, and truths that were invisible in comfort. Suffering also cultivates compassion. To experience one's own inner turbulence is to recognize the universality of struggle. It teaches empathy not as abstraction, but as lived reality. The one who has known loss, disappointment, or heartbreak understands at a visceral level that each being carries burdens unseen. This recognition deepens relationships, enriches perspective, and fosters a quiet reverence for life. Moreover, suffering illuminates purpose. It strips away what is trivial, what is imposed by others, and what is performative. In the crucible of adversity, we confront the question: what truly matters? What do I value beyond comfort, recognition, or approval? It is here, in the silent confrontation with necessity, that authentic life begins. This journey is not linear. Suffering does not follow a predictable path. It may recur, manifest in new forms, or linger longer than we wish. Yet each encounter is part of a rhythm, a dialogue between the world and the soul, between circumstance and insight. To participate fully is to embrace both the discomfort and the subtle revelations it carries. Consider the metaphor of the seed, buried in darkness, compressed by soil, seemingly lifeless, yet, in this hidden pressure, it gathers the force necessary to break through into light. So too, suffering compresses and stretches the soul, shaping it for growth that ease alone cannot achieve. Ultimately, the meaning of suffering is revealed in the life it cultivates. A life touched by adversity but not defined by it. A life where the echoes of pain transform into quiet wisdom, A life that holds space for complexity, uncertainty, and imperfection, yet moves forward with purpose, presence, and authenticity. To live in this way is to accept that pain is not an interruption, but a companion. It is to welcome suffering as part of the natural flow of life, to honor its teachings, and to allow its lessons to guide the construction of character, choice, and meaning. And in this embrace, something remarkable happens. The heart opens, the mind clarifies, the self recognizes its depth. What once seemed a burden becomes a bridge. What was once darkness becomes the medium through which light passes. So the next time adversity arrives, or when sorrow seeps quietly into your days, pause, breathe, attend, ask the questions hidden within the ache. What am I being called to learn? What has this moment revealed about the life I have been living? Where might growth be found if I am willing to step into it? For suffering, when approached with courage, reflection, and openness, is not the end. It is the beginning of something profound, a deeper understanding of self, a life aligned with purpose, and a heart that has learned the subtle alchemy of transforming pain into wisdom. Growth through adversity is not comfortable, nor is it swift, but it is real. It is life lived with honesty. It is the unfolding of the soul in the face of reality, a testament that even in darkness, there is meaning, there is direction, and there is a way forward that honors both the trials we endure and the depths we inhabit. And in this understanding, suffering ceases to be mere affliction. It becomes a teacher, a guide, and a companion. A reminder that every ache carries a seed, every loss carries insight, and every challenge holds within it the quiet promise of growth. To live through suffering and to allow it to shape you without destroying you is perhaps the most courageous act of all. It is the affirmation that life, in all its complexity, is worthy of attention, reflection, and meaning. And in this, we discover not only the depth of our own being, but the profound truth that growth, authentic, lasting, transformative growth, is inseparable from the very experiences that once seemed unbearable.